We were in negotiations.
Investing in real estate, they're winning, they're making money.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Real Estate Educators Podcast, where we provide the education you can build on. I am your host, Kevin Amolsch. I love this podcast because we help real estate investors and real estate educators make more money. So whether you're an investor trying to have some success or you're an influencer, this is the podcast for you. Please share it with a friend and give me a 5-star review. I have a special guest today, Jason Muth. I'm excited to learn more about you. You're doing a lot of short-term rentals, which is a hot topic right now. So you've been in W-2, turned full-time entrepreneur, real estate investor, all the accolades on Airbnb and VRBO, an expert in this niche. You run a property management company for short-term rentals. Let's dig in, man. How you doing?
I'm doing excellent, Kevin. Thank you. It's, hearing all that, it just gives me such imposter syndrome, to be perfectly honest. So I'm still getting used to redefining my life in terms of real estate investing and being an entrepreneur and a short-term rental owner and property manager, because I didn't do this for a long period of time. And that's what happens when we redefine our lives, right? I think a lot of people who are listening are probably either making that transition, or they have their side gig, or they want to transition into something else. And, work is such an important part of our identity. So I'm still recasting my story, but you put it very, very well right there. That's literally what I'm doing right now. Like, I'm doing exactly what you just said, which is running our short-term rentals and being an entrepreneur and running a business.
And you have your podcast, which is awesome. I love the podcast. So I want to hear more about that as well. The imposter syndrome, man, I hear that so much. Like the leadership and peer groups I go to, that's like almost a universal problem. So not surprising to hear that at all. Why do you think that is?
Boy, we see a lot online, whether it's on social media or we're seeking the information out ourselves on Google. I mean, social media, we just kind of feed the beast. So the more that we like in certain categories, the more that spit right back at us. And then we see all these people that, feel so much further ahead than we are, whereas they might be or they might not be. And it's sometimes hard to tell that when you're talking to somebody or you're listening to somebody on social media. So, I'm just as guilty of it. Like we're seeking information, right? We're looking for info as to how to be better with our lives, with our businesses, whether it's operations or mindset. And we seek that info from others who we perceive already know it. So we always kind of have this feeling that we're not that expert. But, I have to remember there's a lot of people that are, further behind. They look at what I do, they look at what you do, and they say, wow, I'd love to be that. And, it's hard for us to see that as people. I think we're always looking for the next thing. We're always looking for bigger and better. We're always aspiring for more, if it's more knowledge, if it's more influence, if it's more money. And, you know, some people reach that point where they're satisfied with what they have and comfortable with who they are, and others are just kind of seeking. So, I've been on this redefinition over the past year, which thankfully I really got my start in back in 2016, and I kind of didn't even know it. It was something that we were doing all along on the side, and it transitioned into what I do full time now.
Well, let's go right there, man. I want to hear about 2016. So how did you fall into real estate?
I guess my father was a real estate appraiser and a salesperson, but not of much noteworthiness. He appraised for a long time, so I kind of knew what the space was, but it never would occur to me that I'd be talking real estate all the time now. Back in, I think it's 2015. So I bought my first condo in Boston back in 2003. So my first taste of owning something was 20 years ago at this point. And, that decade, I wasn't paying any attention to real estate. Like, it was really just, I knew that if I owned my property, it was probably better than renting. I was not house hacking, although I could have been. I had a second bedroom that I wanted, as my office. I'm an only child, so I kind of like my space. These days, everybody would look back at what I did from late 20s, my 30s, and had a great condo in Southie in Boston, and did not rent out the second bedroom, and thought I'd be nuts, right? I could have made $1,000, $1,200 a month, plus more for 10 years straight. Like that's
Wow.
like quintessential house hacking. I just didn't do it because I didn't know about it. We don't learn this stuff in college. Like it wasn't in my DNA. My DNA was you go to school, you get your degree, you go into a field. I went to a field entirely different from when I studied. You work really hard in that field, you work your way up, you just keep working. Like to me, you're supposed to work till you retire. Um, so, somewhere around frankly 2015, after I sold that condo, made some money on it, put it into my second condo in Boston, which we did really, really that neighborhood is hot. South Boston is really, really hot. Like a lot of this is luck because frankly, we parlayed the successes there with my home into a number of investments. But 2015, we discovered Bigger Pockets. And, it's a community that a lot of people that are listening to this or that listen to real estate podcasts are very, very familiar with. I will say we're extremely proud that today we actually just interviewed Dave Meyer from Bigger Pockets on our podcast. So I'm not sure when this will come out and when that one will come out, but it'll probably come out around the same time. And that's a story that I'll leave for that podcast because it's very, very funny as to how I acquainted myself to Dave. But, these guys are celebrities, right? They're rock stars. Like if you are really in the real estate space and you find your way to Bigger Pockets, it's like you've opened up your mind to the way that lots of people are doing it. People are so giving with their information. I'm sure some of it is bragging, but more of it is just like they've been there and they want to explain to other people what they've done. And this was legit back in 2015. Like I actually just looked at the date of my Bigger Pockets profile and it was 2015, before we bought our first second home. So we'd listen and listen and listen. And Rory, my husband, who is another host on the Real Estate Law podcast that you've been a guest on, we would just listen in the car and I'd pause the podcast and be like, all right, Rory, explain to me, what was that? Like, what
Yeah.
what did they just say right there? Because, this was his world. He's a real estate attorney. He gets it. So fast forward to 2016, and we are staying at a house up at a lake in New Hampshire, which is 2 doors down from where Rory's parents had a second home that they kind of did a fix and flip. It's now their retirement home, frankly. But they were buying these little homes that were old 3-season camps around this lake. The wells weren't that deep, they weren't winterized back in the day. Since a lot of those properties have since kind of caught up to 4-season homes and people do live there year round. So we were staying at their property that they were actually Airbnb themselves. They were short-term renting it before I was even doing it. And the bed was awful. It was so bad. I've told this story so many times how the springs are like in your back. And I'm like, I can't sleep on this bed. So like we're out on the pull-out couch and like the sun is screaming in the window at 4:30 in the morning, because it's the dead of summer. My dog, I didn't clip her fingernails. So she was like, walking around the floor and I'm waking up so early and I'm saying, I can't stay in this place, but I know I'm going to be coming up to this lake a lot in the future, especially if we have children, which we now do. So randomly, we were on a walk down the street and there was a for sale sign on a house. And I'm like, let's go take a look at it. Like, I don't, Rory looked it up. It's been on the market for 3 months. Price reduction. Imagine this, these days. We didn't know what was wrong with it. I was convinced it smelled like cat pee or something. Go inside, check it out, and it's great. It's a great home, just dated and needed a little TLC. And we said, all right, hey, let's give it a shot. Like we have a little bit of money that we've invested, um, have some money to put down for the down payment. The house cost $192,000. We had, I'd won almost half the down payment in Las Vegas that year on a random occurrence playing, what was I playing? 3-card poker, 5-card
Wow.
poker,
Okay,
whatever it
this is
was. And
not real estate advice here.
no, it's not. Do not. No. But I love gambling, but to the level of like $5 bets, $10 bets. Like, I was just having this conversation this weekend where, I love being part of it, but like I definitely have my limits. The money I won was on a $15 bet. I hit a royal flush.
Whoa.
I know, on this casino game
Was it like a
where
machine, like one of those machine
no,
games?
it was a table game, and it was three card poker. They gave you, I think it was not 3-card poker, but they gave you 2 cards down and there's 3 community cards, and you're allowed to take back 2 of your bets, and the last one has to remain up there. But I ended up having two cards that were to the royal flush, and they flipped over a third. And then, oh no, you had three cards and they had two community cards, and I ended up getting the royal flush. Anyway, like everybody jumped on the table. The odds are 637 to 1 to get this.
Oh,
I did not make the side bet, the $5 side bet, which would have won me $400,000. But what I learned there was I was grateful with the win that I had, because I walked
yeah.
in there with $200 and I walked out with 15,000. And I took that money and I put it down on real estate. So that's where the story does come back to real estate. And that is good advice. If you do any money gambling, go put it down in real estate.
There you go.
And that was back in 2016. And we said we don't know anything about short-term rentals. It was before the big boom of STRs, and before everyone and their mother and their sister and their cousin and their coworkers were doing it. And we just said, hey, let's give it a shot. Like, I have this $691 a month mortgage to pay now. Let's figure out a way to pay it, and maybe the property will go up in value. And, fast forward to today, I do it full time. My job ended last year, and I have 5 properties that we own and a business that manages short-term rentals. And, that one property, the first year did 24,000, I think. And this year it's probably going to do over 70, in gross. Plus it's gone up, like doubled in value. It's like, everything that we hear about why invest in real estate, that was the classic property to do it. And that fueled the next one, Like, it just keeps spiraling.
So fun. What a great story. I can tell you, I've never heard someone say they won their down payment gambling at cards. So that's a new one. Congratulations for the win. Congratulations for the purchase of your first short-term rental.
I should say that, like, I don't want to class myself as a gambler. I did used to bet with my grandfather 25 cents a game with football back when I was 4 years old. So, like, it's probably deep, deep down in my DNA. But, back when I was like 21 years old, I go to the casino and you bring $300, right? If you lose it, it's like, that's a big deal. Today, in my late 40s, I'll probably still bring $300 to the casino. All right. So, like,
Mhm.
adjusted for inflation, like, I'm certainly not adjusting at all. Like, I get as much of a rise in just kind of being a part of the scene. I don't really need to escalate my bets, because I know that you make your money elsewhere, and the house always wins. So,
Yeah, exactly. And I know a lot of people that enjoy it, but it's like in their entertainment budget, right? They're not
oh,
expecting to win or
100%.
anything. My gambling consists of fantasy football, so that's about as far as I go. $50 for the entire season.
Perfect.
Yeah.
As long as you don't finish last, because then you have to do some crazy stuff. Like, there was some guy I just saw last week that he lost his fantasy football pool, and they made him take 7 consecutive flights over the course of 2 days just around the country.
Oh my gosh. Okay, no, that's funny. No, we don't do anything like that.
No.
Used to be
Yeah.
fun. You have to carry around your toilet bowl or something and your little toilet trophy or something, but we don't do
Yeah.
anything crazy like that. All right. So you say you kind of fell into it, which I guess I could kind of agree with, because you were buying it for your own use and you kind of turned it into income. So that's great that you saw that. But you were already on bigger pockets, it sounds like. So you were starting to research and learn about this. And
Mhm.
what made you get excited about real estate? I guess before that first purchase, what made you even find bigger pockets?
Boy, that's a incredibly interesting question. I don't know. I think at that point in my working career, I probably had enough money saved up. I worked for Comcast for a while, and I was a sales manager there. So we had some stock that I was able to purchase at discount over my time there, and they were a really great employer. So I probably had some money saved up, and I said, I should probably invest this in something, and I don't want to invest it in, one of the standard things that are out there that I've been trained to invest in, which is like a savings account and all the stupid stuff like money markets and whatever. I had my 401k, which has now been rolled over into an IRA. So I think it's just because I had the down payment. And then when you win, a third or half of the down payment, you could pony up the rest. Then, I said, let's give this a shot. It was very much, I don't exactly know what we're doing here. We didn't know how to communicate with guests. I'm not bad at it. I'm actually very good at it. I mean, I was in a sales role, so I understand it's a customer service job along with understanding real estate. But, I'd never owned a proper home like that before. I'd only owned condos. So, there's still stuff we're figuring out, but, I didn't know. I'd never had a septic tank before, right? Now I think I own 5 septic tanks, right? So I don't know if that's something to be proud of or not. Somebody told me that it's not how many properties you own, it's how many toilets.
Is that what they say? Okay. I've,
I
I've
think
heard doors. I haven't heard the
doors,
toilets.
I think I have about 20 something toilets, right?
That's
So, but we didn't know what we were doing, right? And we said, we'll learn this as we go. And we'll learn this from podcasts and from just discovering what guests like and what they don't like. And, after we did that property in 2016, we think we got it live that year and started getting some guests the next year. We had something happen to us at that property, which, almost sidetracked me. And I almost decided never to do this again because we had a pipe freeze up in New Hampshire. Pipes freeze a lot. Well, they freeze everywhere. I guess they were freezing in Texas a couple years ago, back when they had the deep freeze. We knew that it was a potential frozen pipe risk because we were up there for New Year's with some friends, and I noticed that it had frozen. Thankfully, my sister-in-law said, you should have a blow dryer here for women that stay here, like stuff that never occurred to me. So we had a blow dryer there. So thankfully I was able to, blow dry the pipe. I was able to access it, knew exactly what pipe froze. But we had guests coming and I was told, just tell them to leave it on a drip. So I had them leave it on a drip and they didn't leave it on a drip. The pipe burst, water everywhere, all the way down to the basement. It was just so disheartening. It was like, what have I done? Like, first of all, these guests are probably not happy. And second of all, I mean, the place is a mess now, like literally
yeah.
water everywhere. So we had to work on it, repair that ourselves for about 6 weekends and, fix the pipe, figured out what the problem was, got it back up and running and, didn't get sidetracked. And then again, the next year, we ended up having some extra money to invest. And a friend of mine was talking about a different market. So on a whim, we bought in that market too. And, we still own that property. It's in Provincetown, Massachusetts. And then after that second one, that's probably when I was like, huh, this could be a thing,
This
right?
works.
This works. The first one was I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to figure it out. The second one was like, okay, I think I could say that I'm buying properties now. And then it just kind of takes off from there.
Well, your first one was more of a personal use, right? So you just like almost house hacked that basically. And then you saw, sounds like, oh, there's profit here. And so your
Mhm.
second one was not personal use. It doesn't sound like it was strictly for
It
the
was
income.
Well, I mean, we do like to use all of our properties
Oh,
when we
you use them
can.
all. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like our
That's
philosophy
great.
at this point is like we'll bounce around wherever there's availability at the properties, and we always like to appoint them as if we would want to stay there ourselves because we do stay there ourselves. So we don't have anything that we wouldn't want to stay in. Provincetown it's an amazing market. It's on the tip of Cape Cod. It is like the gayest friendly place in the world, and that is not a secret and the numbers do not work for people right now. If you want to buy in Provincetown, you are not going to cash flow. I can guarantee it. But, a lot of people buy in Provincetown to say that they have a place in P Town and they want their costs covered as much as possible because they want to use the place themselves. It's like a
Mhm.
classic New England beach market. So really the name of the game there with new people coming into the market or people that own there is how much money can I make? Maybe I'll make some money. We actually do cash flow in P Town because we got in early enough. But and we had intended to use that property as well. We were living in Boston at the time, and the drive to P Town was just over 2 hours. Plus, there was a ferry if I wanted to take that. The drive to our place in New Hampshire was about an hour and a half. So we were kind of equidistant between the two. And since they were two distant markets, I was able to get second home loans for both, like using W-2
That's
income.
cool. Okay.
Yeah. I don't think you could do that if they're all in the same market because then the bank's going to be like, wait a second, this
Well,
is
you're
another
not using
second
this.
home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had two second home loans on those, amazing rates. And we were going to use P Town more, but we ended up adopting our daughter a few months after we purchased P Town and put it up for rent. So we ended up renting it more than we use it. We do go down there at least 3 times a year. Like we were there a couple weeks ago for Family Week, which is a big week on the Cape as part of the Provincetown community. And we're very connected to Provincetown. Like, we've been there a lot, especially having owned this place, but we realized that, having she's now 4, it kind of makes it tough to do those weekend
Totally.
trips down to P-Town. So, so we end up just renting it as much as we can, and then we'll take any weeks that are not rented, and fits in our calendar, we'll bounce down there. And then we have to block off family week. Any summer weeks in P-Town, if your place doesn't rent, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
just got it similar to you. We just got one in Summit County, Colorado, which is a huge ski area.
Hmm.
Same exact thing, just to use it. And I was like so excited. It's gonna be my first summer with it. I was gonna use it, and it just rented the entire summer. So we didn't even get to use it once. So we're trying to balance now, like blocking your own property out. Sounds like what you have to do, just so we can
Yeah.
experience it also. So
Yeah.
yeah, I share that with you.
Everyone does it a little bit differently. I mean, a lot of people in my world co-host properties that they don't own, so they
Yeah,
don't really have
I've
the
heard
whim
about
to be able
this.
to use them. But if you're an owner yourself, if you're an investor, yes, you probably want to make as much money as possible on the property. If you're going to buy a second home to be able to use it, you should use it. Like,
Right.
however, realize that when you're using it, there's an opportunity cost for money that you could be making otherwise. So it's just kind of a bit of a careful balance. I think it's important still to have a pulse on the community and the properties. I mean, like the places that we operate in, we do know those communities. Provincetown is one. Baxter Lake in New Hampshire, which is Farmington, New Hampshire, is two. And the third one is Guilford, New Hampshire, which is Lake Winnipesaukee, a little bit further north from Farmington. And we feel very connected to all those communities because we know the communities, because we spend time there, spend time at the house. We know our neighbors. We employ our neighbors sometimes. So we basically, we're not just buying in throw a dart in the market of the month and buying properties there and then reading up on it on Google, and maybe you get to go there once. Like, we do feel a connection to our properties, and that's just how we've chosen to do it.
The Real Estate Educators Podcast is brought to you by Pine Financial Group. Pine Financial Group is a private lender specializing in value-add bridge lending for real estate investors. This is accomplished by raising private money from individual investors and lending that money out in short-term real estate loans. Pine operates one of the coolest public mortgage funds on the market because it brings consistency and security to your investment portfolio without giving up on returns. The fund pays its investors a flat 8% return with monthly distributions. There is a low minimum investment and no lockup period. That's right, you can request all of your money back at any time without any fees. Diversify your portfolio out of Wall Street and into Main Street with the Pine Financial Group Public Fund PFG Fund 5. Find out more at pinefinancialgroup.com. That's pinefinancialgroup.com.
And real estate created for you sounds like the opportunity to use them. Like not everybody, you get 2-3 weeks off a year. Not everyone can do that, right? And you can work remote.
Well, yeah. So, fast forward a little bit. I mean, COVID hits in 2020, and we had two properties at the time, P-Town and the one in New Hampshire I've described. Back when the world closed and nobody knew it was going to happen. Like, I remember distinctly, it was St. Patrick's Day weekend in Southie, which is the biggest weekend of the year for that neighborhood, my old neighborhood. We actually still are connected to Southie because Rory's office is there. We own a commercial condo in South Boston. So, we're still Boston property taxpayers. The parade in Southie is a big, big, big deal for St. Patrick's Day. Well, this is when COVID's about to hit. Nobody's paying attention to what the mayor is saying. Their bars are packed and lines out the door. And I remember we were getting that office ready to launch and open because we just purchased that office the previous winter. So we're literally painting it, wallpapering, getting it ready. And I said to Rory, I'm like, let's just drive. Let's take Broadway home. Let's just drive the long way home. And I saw these lines at the door, and I'm like, this is not going to end well. And the next day, the mayor's on TV scolding everybody, and then all the closures started to happen. And that's when we said, we're out of here. So the slowest time for us in New Hampshire is March and April. We call it the mud season. There's really nothing, there's no skiing, not beautiful summer, there's no
Right.
leaf peeping, just kind of muddy. So my calendar was pretty open, frankly. And I said, let's get out of Boston before they close the city. Like, I didn't know if they were going to close the borders or what. But, our daycare closed shortly thereafter for the better part of 3 months. And we just took off. We went up to New Hampshire. I think I came back to Boston 3 or 4 times in a 3-month period. We just lived up there, which I think was a great way to kind of clear our heads, get away, try to see what was happening with, the early months of COVID, which if you recall, were just completely insane.
Oh, I
Um,
remember.
our calendar in Provincetown completely unbooked, because nobody knew it was happening. So now we're sitting there saying, geez, I have 2 more mortgages to pay and no bookings. Like, what do I do? But you're patient. And, once things started kind of reopening, the calendars rebooked really quickly. And, we were able to pay the bills, which was good. But that allowed us some time to work on the property too. So we did some improvements while we were up there. We, built a patio and walkway and, changed the outdoor space around a little bit, did some more landscaping. It was a good way to kind of stay in shape
You guys are
because
handy.
we were handy. We needed things to do. We got our fingers dirty and we built stuff that improved the property.
That's awesome. I would love to chat with you more about this. So we're gonna have to have you back on, Jason. But I want to get into the podcast because that's been an important piece for you, it sounds like, and you've
Yep.
got some benefit from it. So tell us about the podcast.
So it's the Real Estate Law Podcast. I think we're about 120 episodes deep at this point. Your episode came out just a couple months ago, I believe. And we launched this thing back in 2019, just as a way for Rory to build some credibility. Because at the time, I wasn't the one in the space. It was just a side hustle for me. And Rory's a real estate attorney and a real estate broker in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. And I was like, yeah, this is a good way to, build
Yeah.
some credibility up. So we did eight episodes, all audio, and then we had the baby, right? So she came and we're like, all right, this is going to go on the shelf for a little bit. 2 years later, in the middle of COVID, we're like, let's relaunch this thing. Like, it's stupid we're not doing it. So we decided to launch it again as a video podcast with episode 9, which came out in 2021. We did about 10 episodes with just the two of us bantering and bickering. And then we started inviting guests on around episode 20. And the guests just got better and better and better as time went on. And we got better as hosts, I think. People seem to like our conversations. We talk about things that are just all over the map. We talked a lot about passive income when you came on and different forms of making money. We don't always talk about law, even though the word law is in the podcast. We like to keep it light, and nobody wants to hear an entire podcast about law. So we'll sprinkle in some legal things here and there, but it's really about finding your space, mindset, financial freedom, short-term rentals, long-term rentals, passive income. We just had an attorney on that was talking about how to protect yourself through a variety of different LLCs. We talk about personal branding. I mean, it's just a whole variety of different topics, and it has opened up so many conversations for us. We get to meet people like yourself, Kevin, who, you were a fantastic guest. We learned so much from people like you. And, we like to keep those conversations going as time goes on. So we almost feel like it's been a cheat code and a way that we get, 30, 45 minutes, an hour of somebody's time that we've never talked to if we didn't have them on our podcast. And then, we promote them heavily afterward. And I should say, we just joined a podcast network, a network called hospitality.fm. It's run by a guy named Will Slickers, and it's awesome. This podcast about, hospitality is kind of his background, but, he met a lot of the short-term rental people back when Clubhouse was a thing. If you remember Clubhouse a couple of years ago.
That I was just on Clubhouse not that long ago, but I didn't even heard of it.
Oh, you were the one that was on there. No, I'm just kidding.
The one
It,
guy.
that was a big thing back when it was locked down, right? Clubhouse, everyone's doing
Yeah,
these
that's
audio
right.
conversations. So Will met a bunch of other power players in the STR space, and they got talking, and eventually he added them to his podcast network. And he's got a bunch of other different podcasts on there about, various facets of real estate and hospitality. And we just joined it this year. It's been a great partnership so far, just additional exposure, more access to great guests, hopefully some sponsor dollars at some point. We're really doing
Cool.
this for credibility and labor of love at this point, but
Yeah, so
that
I'll
could
look into
change.
that.
Yeah.
And you've gotten some credibility, and you've talked about some of your benefits. So how did you do it? I got so many questions for you. Let me start with
Keep
one.
going. Yeah.
So if how often do you post episodes? And is there a normal cadence, and are you consistent with it?
Yeah. So I am the executive producer. I will wear that badge proudly. Rory just kind of lets me do my thing. Obviously we live together, we're married, but like constantly I will quote episodes with him. I'm like, oh, because I'm doing a lot with social media. Like we have an assistant also that helps with this. I have a producer who does the audio and video production, and then we have an assistant that helps with some of our scheduling of the social media and some other things with our businesses. So I was kind of helping him through the scheduling of a lot of the short clips that we produce afterward that we take out of the episode. So I get to kind of rewatch this stuff all the time. Like after an episode goes live or right before it goes live, I used to listen to the entire episode and go through the transcript myself. It was just a lot of time I was spending on it. So a couple things I've had to offload, but we do post every single week. With podcasting, the secret is consistency, is what I was told, and then it's what I've discovered as well. So if you commit to it and you set a schedule and you take it seriously, then you're going to be fine. You're going to be successful. But if it's the kind of thing that you keep scratching off your calendar or you keep not finding time for, you're not going to have a successful podcast because we don't have people that are sitting back waiting for us to release an episode. It's not like that, but we're taken seriously if we do it all the time. So we have friends and family all the time that mention to us that they heard an episode or they saw that we were doing it. I don't know how many episodes they listen to, but somebody's listening to something. And then there's other people out there in the world that are listening because we hear from folks who want to be on the podcast. And I didn't solicit them. Like they're all coming in. I'll get inbound emails, a number of times a week for people that want to be on. So, I manage all the guest bookings. We do everything through Zoom, keep it really simple, just like this. We offshore the production to our producer where we just send the audio and he cleans everything up and gets us back full episodes. And, we post these basically every Tuesday.
And has Rory seen an uptick in business? I mean, obviously credibility, that's a given, but is he getting leads? Is he getting some benefit?
Yeah, we got a bunch throughout. Like he'd hear from some agents who might want to work with him. I don't know if a couple probably came aboard as a result of the podcast kind of opening the door. What happened recently, though, is we moved up to Newburyport, Massachusetts, which is about 40 miles north of Boston. It's a coastal community right near the border of New Hampshire. We, just want to kind of move out of the city now that we had a daughter and she'd be entering the school system. So, we're kind of analyzing everything in our lives. He's only going back to the office a couple days a week at this point. He's doing some more remote work and he started to want to do a little bit more work close to home. So he, through our network, he's starting to partner up with some other law firms that are more prevalent throughout New Hampshire and up here. And he found his way to a law firm called Hudkins Law. He's doing some just, contract work at this point with them, but it could turn into something else if everyone thinks it's the right fit. But Hudkins was just opening up an office in Newburyport and they have an interest in building out Boston. And the podcast plays into this because the owner who I met, she's super nice, Jackie Hudkins, loves the podcast. Like when I met her, she made her husband and son listen to the podcast on the entire drive over to the meeting just to like meet us. And I was like, really? Like you like what we have to say? Like
You got to be proud of that, right?
Very flattering. Yeah. And, I don't know how many other lives we touch, as a result of that. Like I'm sure there's a lot of other people that listen to what you have to say and what we have to say. And, if they could take a couple nuggets from it, then we've done our job. But, really I see this. The intent was to build credibility, frankly. It was build credibility for Rory, and I was going to help with that since I had the broadcasting background. And now it's to help redefine myself, because early on in this episode, I was talking about imposter syndrome and, redefining who I am. The past year, I've made it a very intentional mission to recast myself in this space and be the person I want to be now and going forward in the real estate investing world rather than the world that I just left, which I loved the media, but it was time to move on. So the podcast is kind of helping me also recast myself and to build some credibility in this space because people certainly listen and hear what I have to say. And,
Right.
most of what I have to say is okay. Some of it is completely stupid, I'm sure, but I don't have to lean back on the degree or a license and say, well, I'm not licensed. I don't have a, JD. Like I'm just kind of this real estate investor on the side. But anyway, it's helped with credibility. It really has. And I think that like the big cash-ins are probably going to happen in the coming year. Hospitality.fm was a big one. Rory looking up with that law firm was another big
Yeah,
one.
that's
You
huge.
know, just landed a couple hosts from Bigger Pockets on our podcast. Dave was today. I have another one coming up. So, who knows where it's going to lead, but I just feel like I can point to this library of stuff that we've put a lot of work into when I go to lenders, right? When I go to potential clients, if I want to open up a co-hosting business, when I go to other people that might want to do business with me, I could say, well, take a look at this podcast that we do.
Yeah. Or
And
if you're going
that
to raise
should
capital, maybe like if you're going to try to
raise,
expand and
well, I'll have to call you and you can help me with that. We're not there yet, Kevin, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I
yeah.
think that those are all potential things that could happen. And having a library of content that we've worked very, very hard on and had amazing guests like yourself on, I think that will do nothing but help. Like no one's going to look at that and be like, "Oh, you're bad podcasters," or "You don't have good guests," or "You're saying bad stuff that doesn't make any sense." We're not. We know that we're not. We know it's pretty good. It's not the best, but we're
That's
trying
great.
really hard. Yeah.
I love how you have you guys do that together because the two hosts, it adds a dynamic to it that, a lot of people don't do that. And I really enjoyed it. And I like the podcast a lot. So if you're listening to this, check it out. How do we find it?
Well, the
It's Real Estate Law.
realestatelawpodcast.com. Yeah. I mean, we're on iTunes and Spotify are kind of the two big places. But if you Google the Real Estate Law Podcast, you should find us. It's a big orange logo with the words the Real Estate Law Podcast.
All right. Well, we're going to have to wrap up here in a minute, Jason, but I do want to ask this. I love asking this question. So tell me, what has real estate done for you?
Oh my God. What has it done? It gave me a second career after my first career said that I was done with it. That's amazing. I mean, like, if I didn't have the real estate that we've been working on since 2016, when my job ended last year, I would have had to have gotten another big boy job. But instead, I didn't have to do that because basically I was going to leave anyway. They just beat me to it. And I said, all right, it's go time now. Now I get to be the entrepreneur that I'm going to be in the second chapter of my life. And it gives you freedom. We're all looking for time freedom, financial freedom. I've worn shorts every day for 3 months straight,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Love
Like
it.
I'm no less productive and I'm affecting the lives of the people that stay at our properties. Hopefully somebody who's listening to this is getting inspired or we've said something that might make them, want to change their trajectory. We answer to ourselves, right? So, we're the ultimate arbiter as to whether or not something is right or wrong. But the real estate investing community, I've said this so many times on our podcast, and I tell everybody this. It is the complete opposite of the world in which I just came from, where,
Oh, yeah, I bet.
every corporate America is tough, right? And especially the media world where jobs get consolidated every quarter. If it's musical chairs, a couple chairs get taken away every single quarter. They're not adding jobs. This is not a secret. The real estate investing world, everyone wants to help each other. They just do. At some point, people are competitors, but I've never felt like I've talked to somebody where they didn't want to share information with me because they had a secret deal that they were afraid that I was going to get. Right. We're all in it to help each other. And, we surround ourselves with people that can lift us up, can inspire us, can teach us stuff. Again, I liked a lot of my older coworkers, but it just wasn't that space. If people wanted to get that next job up, you're competing with a bunch of other people that are probably your peers and people that you don't know. I'm not doing that now, right? Like I haven't set an alarm in 3 years. I mean, I was up at 4:30 this morning, but that's just my body. But, you don't feel
It's because you're
stressed. I
loving
don't.
what you're doing. You're enjoying
Yeah.
life. It's easy to get
Yeah.
out of bed when you're enjoying it.
And I gotta say, it sounds so cliche, and like I just don't want to come across as one of those podcast guys that we all listen to, where we're like, oh, like how do you reach that point? I've heard those podcasts,
Yeah.
back in 2015, 16, 17, when we were saying that would be cool, wouldn't that be cool? you got to work at it, right? Like it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of time, a lot of patience, a lot of work, finding the right deal. You know, no deal is better than a bad deal. So don't get into bad deals.
Great advice.
And, look out 3 to 5 years. It's going to be tough to find stuff today that is going to cash flow out of the gate. It's out there, but, I'm not finding it because I'm not looking right now. I've just consciously chosen to reinvest in our properties as our next iteration of our business. So, but we're fortunate that we got in earlier into the short-term rental game and we're in appreciating markets and our properties are cash flowing. So I can take some risks, right? A property that we did last year, maybe it'll break even this year, but we did a big cost segregation study on it. We have tax benefits right now. It did go up in value. And I have a 3 to 5 year horizon where I'm looking out saying, okay, well, in 3 to 5 years, like this is going to be a really good investment. Like right now, it's fine, but in a few years, it'll be great. So have that foresight.
Yeah, I love the advice. Like I can just get chills hearing like how real estate is changing people's lives, and you're no different. It's producing the results that you would expect when you put in the effort, as you elegantly said. So, Jason, I really appreciate everything. Thanks for coming on the show. Is there any last words of wisdom or pieces of advice you'd want to share?
I mean, I feel like we've shared a lot in this episode. I mean, I would say if you haven't gotten started, don't go into a bad deal just to start getting into the game, but you have to get into the game. I hate saying the word game, but people say it all the time in this world,
Yeah.
right? I did say though that you need to find a way to diversify your income. If you're working in a W-2 job and that's all you have, like figure out today what that next income stream is going to be. It could be something simple. It could be a couple $100 a month, but it'll get you thinking about, having multiple income streams. The fact that, when my job ended last year and I lost that income stream, sure, I wanted it, but now I had 40 hours a week plus back to reinvest in myself and figure out how to make that income back. And by the end of this year, we'll have made it back, within 12 months.
Awesome. And you're having more fun, it looks like.
Infinitely.
Infinitely
It's
more
not even a question. I
fun.
don't commute. I don't commute. I mean, like all that time in the car, stuck, hour-long commutes. I did not have an hour-long commute back when I lived in Boston. It was a 7-minute commute, but the office moved. If I was driving from Newburyport out to where that office was, that would be an hour plus each way in bumper to bumper traffic. And I got to tell you, Kevin, I did that drive last December with a screaming toddler in my back seat. And that
Oh,
that
I've been
combination
there.
of bumper to bumper plus the child was like, I want zero to do with being stuck in this traffic. I am so happy I'm not doing that commute right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again, Jason. I really would love to have you back if you're open to it, so we could dig more into the short-term rental. I know it's a hot topic. People are loving that strategy. It's shifting a little bit with interest rates going up, a lot more inventory, all of that. So I want to get into all of that with you in a future episode.
Absolutely. I'm happy to come back. I warn you, Kevin, though, I could just keep talking. So I'm
I
a
know.
talker here.
It's awesome. And I'm looking at the time, and we really like to keep these around 30 minutes. As you know, it seems like that's a good sweet spot, and we're over that. So yeah, we'll just keep having you back, man. I love it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Happy
All
to.
right. Well,
Thank you so much, Kevin.
appreciate everything. And this is Kevin Amos. We'll see you on the next one.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. If you did, please be sure to follow and leave us a review. Oh yeah, and tell a friend.